Hey everybody, my name is Bobbie Richardson. This is Ascension Messages. I will be your guide for today. Today we are going to talk fairies. We are going to talk my stories, what happened to me in my life that connected me to the fae folk and so on. So it's very interesting. I have some beautiful pictures, some photographs, some things that have happened to me. Very interesting stories. I just wanted to do a whole collaboration because the fae folk seem to be coming up again in my reality, and I think that's precisely for a reason, for us to connect back to Gaia and them again. So let's get into this, right? First of all, I will do a bit of housekeeping. We have a couple of books that I've created. I am an author illustrator of Imagine Holding Hands. This is a beautiful book for children with awesome pictures in it. Let me get something. Yeah, and asking questions for the kids. And this book is Jonah Kitty, the Timekeeper's Void, which is going to come into these stories as well, because this is an actual story of what I would call faction. It's where it's not fiction and it's not non-fiction. It's my facts of my story wrapped into a creative channeled story to help people connect back to the elemental world. And so there's a lot of magic happening within that story, and there's some really cool synchronistic things that happened as well. So I'm also creator of fortune dice, which I will do a video. I know I've said that a couple of times, but I have to do that. I'm kind of following my passion at the moment. I've just created a new song and doing a lot of channel messages as well. So let's get into the elementals. Yay. I'm going to start off with one of my first stories of actually interacting with the elementals and how they got my attention. So my name is Alana Wananahi. It was given to me by a Cherokee elder that I met in when I was over in Ohio. So she would prick your finger and then go and meditate on your soul lineage. And she said it took her a couple of times, but she did find my name and my lineage, and it was Alana Wananahi. And Alana meant turtle. She said it's where, well, she was, she said it was where I kind of carry this code on the back of the turtle to lead people through to the new earth. She wrote up a big kind of a story about it as well, which I do have for another video. But the other name was Nanahi, so it was Alana Wananahi, and Nanahi meant fairy. And so I had a lot of people coming out to me going, of course you're fairy, yes, yes, yes. But she came up to me later and said, no, you're actually creator of fairies. So that was very interesting, because I have had other people, like a beautiful friend of mine, Michael Lamb, who came up to me the first time. He's an amazing wizard alchemist that I met. And he said, oh, you're the fairy princess, blah, 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 fairy queen or something. I don't know. I've had it a few times where people have said something like that to me. So I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not really concerned, because I'm human, right? I'm just the same as everybody else, and that's where it is for me. But I'm just telling you the story as we go along. So first of all, I've got a few pictures as well. I'm going to bring them up as I tell the story. First of all, I found myself creating new nursery rhymes for my children. And this was probably one of the first encounters I've had with fairies, because one of the nursery rhymes that I created, I used to twist all of the nursery rhymes. I didn't like them, so I made up my own nursery rhymes out of the tunes of the old ones, kind of thing. And one of the ones that I created was to do with there's a fairy on my knee. And when I was with one of my girlfriends one day, we were sitting, you know how you squat with your knees up, chatting away. And we literally saw this, I could only explain it as like a little, if you saw a floating hair, but it was like a light. Like the hair was light, it was just white, and it was kind of in a jagged G, and we both saw it, and it landed on my knee. So that was really interesting. And then it would have been not soon after we ended up in a forest, and when we were in that forest, I saw these flashes of white light, and I said to my girlfriend, "Oh, it must be the fairies." And then the following Saturday, and I know you guys know I already have explained this before, I literally have been gifted with the sight to see into other frequencies, had a lot of visitations from ETs, extraterrestrials, different messages, all sorts of things where I've seen things and I've heard things outside of me that seems real to me, but nobody else can see or hear it. So I'm able to see into other frequencies. This night I woke up and it was dark, obviously. The outside, I could see outside because my sliding door didn't ever have any curtains on it. It was a balcony out there, and then there was trees, and I saw this tree turning bright red. And then I saw a fairy that was about 3 feet, probably about 2 feet high actually. She floated, ran across the sliding door. And then I had in my mind, what you saw on Saturday was real. But on that Saturday, I was actually at a place called Crystal Castle in New South Wales. I was selling my books there, Imagine Holding Hands books. They'd sold quite a few of them, hundreds actually. And they had huge big crystals everywhere. It's the closest place I've ever felt into new earth frequencies on earth in this dimension, considering, because I've been taken to the new earth frequencies before, that felt real for me. That's the closest I've had while being awake and actually visiting a place. It's called Crystal Castle. It's in New South Wales in Australia. Amazing, beautiful place. So when I was there and I saw these little lights, when we went for a walk through the forest and that, I also had a tarot card reading. So what I said was, when this voice came in my head, what you saw on Saturday was real, was the tarot card reading, right? Because my ego's like, oh, the tarot card readings, right? So they put a little pain in my head behind my right eye. And I can still remember where I put it. It was just a small pain, like an annoyance kind of a thing. And then I went, oh, maybe that's wrong. Maybe it was the lights. Maybe it's the fairies. And the pain just disappeared like that. So I then went, okay, the fairies are real. The next morning, now I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. So the next morning I went out. I went outside and I saw, I'll just bring up the, this is what I saw. So hang on, let me see if we can get this shared screen. So I went outside of my backyard and took this photo of these massive mushrooms that had grown the same night. And I'd never had them in my backyard before, but it was such a big ring of it. I couldn't even get the whole picture of the ring in, but they were about the size of saucers. And they just went for miles around. There was a couple of really massive rings of them. So that's what I took the very next morning after I had them talk to me. Then I had a pull to paint a picture. And this literally took me just a day to paint. I just went crazy. I couldn't stop myself. So I painted this red tree, and then I put these two fae figures, a male and a female, here. tell you the truth, a little blob hit on the page there, and I turned it into a falling leaf. So that was painted. That all happened in 2007, and then after that, it was quite a few years later. I ended up, where am I going to show you? Oh yeah, 2000. I think it was about 2014. The same picture. This little frog landed on my picture between the two. Isn't he cute? Between the two, where the vortex of that whole thing there was, and I between the two fairies, sorry, on the tree trunk, and I got this message that it was a leap or a porthole or something for me to be able to connect with these beautiful elemental beings when the timing was right. And this is why I'm bringing these stories up now, because the timing is getting close, right, to connections again, to Gaia, to the Fae folk, and all that sort of stuff. And the reason why I'm saying that too is because just recently I did a powerful meditation, and I have spoken about this before, where I connected with the elementals, and I thought, I know that I've met a lot of people that I can tell were elementals straight before this life, and they came in as a human to be able to connect with the elementals, so that there's some sort of loop between humanity and elementals again. And I wanted to awaken them and awaken the elementals as well. So I did this powerful meditation of awakening the elementals to connecting to these humans that have been born from that place in the previous life and are now human, and start conversing with them. And I said in the meditation, I want to have confirmation that this is happening. So I want to see fairy rings. And I'm a delivery driver, and the next day, it was the next week, sorry, I have never seen so many fairy rings in so many different people's house, in front of their houses. We're talking just literally, on my one run, I saw about 30 houses with fairy rings. It was just incredible. I've never seen that many in my life. Anyway, so that happened. Now I'm going to go into, so there is a story that's come up recently that I will go into, but I want to also touch base with a different story that happened to me with elementals as well. Also, this happened with a girlfriend of mine. So the time that I was, writing this book, I created a character, and the character was called Lupnit. And he was the in-between character for the Fae folk, but he had lost his way. And I'm going to get to the story of what's really happened with the elementals soon, and what I know anyway. I'll just see if I can find it. Doesn't even matter because I'll show you the picture anyway. But yeah, so I don't know if you could see in that little picture there, that's him in this book. So I literally drew him, and then I went about a couple of weeks later to a girlfriend's house, and her and her partner had created a massive bonfire. It was literally breathing. It was as big as a room. It was huge. And I went back and started taking photographs of this bonfire. And each photograph that I took, I felt like there was a being trying to come through. Even this one looks like a fairy, right? It's got almost a small wing and like a person's head and so forth. But then the very next picture after this, I said, "Show your face." I literally said that out loud, and I clicked. And this is what I clicked. So I don't know if you could see that, but it is exactly, oops, sorry, very similar to, I will bring up the drawing I had drawn a couple of weeks before. So that was showing me that, or telling me that the book that I was creating, which I knew anyway because it was channeling through me, was channeled through, that there was communication between these other beings. So you can see even his arm is similar in the way that I've drawn his elbow. You can see his bulbous little nose there, his little beady eyes and the spiky hair and his long mouth there. I mean, some people would say, oh, you're just trying to see things and something that's there, but I don't know. That's pretty freaking close if you ask me. And I am very, very honest with myself with all of these things. I'm a very grounded person. I have like 6 Virgo signs, so I'm very logical with it all as well. But I've had so many experiences I can't deny. So yeah, that happened. I just stopped sharing for a little bit. Just seeing what order to do all of these things. Another experience that I had was I went for a walk through a 1,000-year-old forest with a friend of mine that was into crystal gridding, and that he's like, oh, I'm going to go to the forest. I often do this at night time, kind of sneak in, and he does crystal gridding in this 1,000-year-old forest. And I thought I'll come along for the journey. And I said to him before we literally walked into this forest, don't be surprised if something unusual happens. Now we walked in and we were following a path. It was completely dark. There was 2 trees. I remember walking past these 2 big trees and feeling like now we're stepping into the mystery, the magical world. And literally after we'd passed through those trees, hundreds of fireflies come flying around. And I was like so ecstatic. I was so thrilled. It was the most beautiful, magical experience ever. I remember putting my finger out and them just darting, like hovering just about this far away from my head, from my face. So they're all flying with us. You could see as we were walking down this path for a good 15-20 minutes in the dark that everything behind us, there was no fairy folk, and there were no fireflies, and in front of us there was no fireflies. They were literally following us for 15 to 20 minutes. And it was beautiful. I was so excited. In the end, how it all kind of fell apart was this person had it in his head, I've got to do the crystal gridding. And I remember him yelling out, stop. And I stopped. And I'm like, why would you bring the energy down? No, so that you could do your crystal gridding. This is something that's happening in the moment. And he's like, stop. It was a real forceful stop. So I stopped and all of the fireflies disappeared. They just went. And left us in the dark. And he started doing his crystal gridding. So I was like, ah. But okay, that's the way it happens. We're in this reality, and we've got to go with it. There was 2 massive, huge trees there that were what were they called? Rose gums, huge ones. Now one has just fallen. One of those rose gums has just fallen, and I felt that a very, very special place. And I felt there was a reason why it had fallen, and I think it was the fall. It was literally telling us, because this only happened a few years ago, the fall of the logical side of ourselves, the way the system's built on logic, so that we can bring back balance again. Another experience that I had in the same place in this forest was a friend of mine said, as we were walking, this is just during the day, and it's a public walk, right? But he said to me, there's portals here. And I'm like, okay. And those two huge trees were in front of us. And I just went, okay, like I just accepted it. I've seen so much and experienced so much, I just accepted it. Now, the next step that I had was very slow motion. And it was like I looked down and my movement of my body went into slow-mo. I believe it's because my mind sped up. And when my mind sped up into a different frequency, I was able to connect and see a being. And it was very shadowy, but I definitely could see it as a being. And I know that he saw me see him. And he ran across me in front of my path, and then he hid behind a tree and he looked. And it was literally like seeing one of those movies, right? But this is for real. And he looked, and then he saw me, and then he zigzagged, like very fast, zigzagged from one tree to another, went further and further and further away from me, but looking each time, does she still see me? Does she still see me? Sort of thing. And then I went back into normal mode, where I wasn't in that slow mode anymore. So that was another amazing experience. I've just got one story after another, honestly. So getting into another story that happened to me, I had just come back from I went to I tried to do a couple of talks. This is my very first movement into doing live talks. And it was at one of those spiritual churches. And so I got up, did my talk. I think it was way beyond what anyone else could understand, but I was really in the thick of understanding a lot then. And that was okay. It was really more of a place for me to get up and experience live talking about this sort of stuff. I ended up coming home with my two girls. One I was carrying, she was asleep, and the other one was walking. And we walked up the stairs, and my staircase, just walking up to my front door, had a little bed of dirt underneath it. And I saw a light, and I went, oh, someone must have turned on a torch or something like that. So I went inside, put my girls to bed, and then I came back to check out if that was the actual torch that was left on. And lo and behold, this is what I saw. So let's share screen again. This is what I saw. I saw glowing mushrooms, and they looked just like that kind of mushroom too. So, and there was like a bunch of them just like that, emanating their own light. And I went, okay, I'm in for a busy night. I could feel it. There was a reason why those mushrooms, because glowing mushrooms very seldom grow around suburbia, around houses, around humans. They don't grow around humans. So I went inside, I went to sleep, put myself to bed, and I got woken up. I don't know how long later, but it wasn't that long, maybe an hour. It felt to imprints. My pillow was being walked on, and if you have a very light cat that was walking on your pillow, it was kind of like that. So I literally felt the indentations of this thing walking on my pillow behind my head. And in my mind, I saw a little fairy character. I didn't see it with my own eyes, but I saw it in my mind. And it was, and I felt it was a pet of somebody, of a being, of an elemental maybe. Well, I found out later it probably was. I went back to sleep, and this thing woke me up. It was somebody now sitting on my bed. So I'll tell you the story that I wrote all those times ago. So this is what I wrote. I've seen many things that others don't always see. I think I wrote this this was written back a long time ago. I've seen many things that others don't always see and have learned over the years to fine tune the visions or experience to truth for myself or what I want to focus on at the time. One of my experiences was after coming back from a public speaking I did. I was carrying my youngest up the front stairs and noticed a light underneath. Thinking one of the kids had left a torch on, I checked it out and soon discovered it was a glowing mushroom, something that doesn't usually grow around suburbia. I was very excited, feeling into I knew it as if I knew I was to be visited that night. After getting the girls off to sleep, I bunked down myself, okay, only to be awakened by something walking around my head like a furry cat, but I knew that the cats were outside. I also knew it was lighter than a cat, and I also saw in my head it was not a cat. I saw a different creature in my head. I opened my eyes and saw a man before me. He was uh, a man-sized fairy. He didn't show his face at first as it was shaded, but loved to show his chest. Eventually, he let his shadowy veil down enough to show his eyes, which I noticed wrapped around the sides of his face. They literally went to the side of his face. It was very interesting. He suggested we could couple in the most respectful way. It was kind of like we could couple, we could, but almost like a feeling of shaking hands. That's how we connect. That's how you can connect. But of course, I denied the gesture and I asked him to move on. He politely walked out of the room, holding a hand up to one ear and talk as if he was talking on a phone in the Celtic fairy language. I think what he was doing was he literally wasn't holding anything in his hand, but I think he did it that way to say to me, "I'm going to be communicating with my other peers and that to move on." To journey through, move on away from you, sort of thing. It was kind of like letting me know he's communicating. And he did talk in a Celtic fairy language. I noticed a white grid develop in front of him as he walked into it and he disappeared. I'll show you the white grid in a minute if I can. So it was like line, 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 line. You know how you get a line, 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 and then this line, 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 line. Like it just went out into my lounge room like that. Yeah, so this is the grid that I saw coming out. It was a white grid coming out of this man-sized fairy. Just a week or so after that, I ended up at some sort of music festival, and I met a fella, and I mentioned this to him, and he'd said that he had seen a grid like that as well, but when he saw the grid, he saw a home, a house, and when he walked through the grid, the house wasn't there, and when he walked back, the house was there. So it was like another alternate reality as well. So that kind of confirmed to me as well that there was different realities, different frequencies on Earth that we can literally tap into, and we can experience and expand our whole perception, our whole reality. I was grateful he respected my answer and went to go back to sleep. I need to find the indentions of a furry pet friend still walking around my pillow. And I also asked him a couple of questions where he was from. He actually mentioned Mexico, but I like Mexico, okay. Didn't know anything more about it than that. I have actually been to Mexico, to the Mayan temples. This happened even more years later. So funny how we end up having these tie-in experiences. This is what I saw. So this is the little man fairy that I saw. That's the only thing I could show you in my bedroom. Yeah, it's not a very good picture, but hey. Yeah. Now, I'm going to get into the reason why that I'm bringing all of this up. And I want to at least let you guys know what I know about the elementals and their journey and our journey, and a better understanding of what's going on. So, before the Great Fall happened, humanity had connection with the elementals. Palladians came and taught us how to communicate with the elementals. They had specific jobs. Each one had specific jobs. So fairies would have a specific job. Little gnome-like figures would have a specific job, and so forth and so forth. Now, these jobs were more to do with connecting us to things like medicines, plant life, portholes, connection to plants, visiting other dimensions here on Earth and Gaia. And our world was a lot more expansive, a lot more. But what happened when the fall happened and humanity ended up no longer having a telepathic abilities, which is the fall of the Babylon, a universal language of telepathy fell because it's connected to our right hemisphere, and we now had to learn all about our logical side of ourselves, which we've just gone through. With that fall that happened and telepathy disappeared, we no longer could connect to the elementals anymore. But their specific job, right, was to connect humanity to plant life and all of that sort of stuff. So their jobs were now obsolete. And that's when they started becoming mischievous. So you'll find fables and stories over these last thousands of years of people who are getting sucked into the sirens, the mermaids, or sucked into little creatures that were, they lost their way. And there was all those sort of stories of, don't go down to that area because that's where they dance and sing and you'll get sucked into their reality. So I was led just recently to a story. I was given this book by the same friend that I saw the fairies with, actually, years and years ago. And honestly, in 2007, honestly, I haven't even read much of this book because I don't like to read and I don't like to watch other people's videos. I know a lot of people have given me videos on Facebook and stuff to watch. I'll only watch what I'm pulled to because I trust my guidance and I like to be able to get clear information from my guidance rather than copy somebody else's stories or whatever. So they led me to this page, and I've not read many stories, but this is one story I just read, and that was the corals. So yeah, these little creatures here. Okay. Now, what they were showing, what the story was about, was these little creatures used to sing and dance around the monoliths, and when they'd sing and dance around the monoliths, they had a song that they would kind of lure humans into, because their job was specifically to connect humans to another frequency on Earth, a portal, to open up portals. But humans had to be aware enough and telepathic and connect with them enough, and still in their mind too, to be able to converse with them. And then the story would flow into, they've done their job, thank you very much, and they feel happy and content with themselves because that's what they're here to do, and they don't become mischievous. But because we lost our telepathic ability, people in the fables, even in the story, people would go see these characters, they'll be singing, they want you to finish the song. So this song that's in this story was all of the days of the week, but they missed Saturday. And if you didn't get the end of the song, or you didn't sing it with them and understand it, you weren't allowed to go into the portals. And so they become mischievous, and they would loop you into a loop of constantly stay stuck in this circle of singing the song and not knowing what to do next until you got it. So that's why a lot of humans say, don't go down there, you'll get stuck. But when we get our telepathic ability back again, and many of us are, and we start connecting to these other beings, there doesn't need to be any fear, because we're now able to communicate with them and say, we understand now, and we can connect, and we know that the next thing is, because the day that was missing was Saturday, and I really feel Saturday, which was Saturn, it's something to do with the third eye and opening up the third eye. I don't know why, I'm just going with the story. That's not in this book, but this is what I'm feeling into. It's something to do with losing that ability to be telepathic and communicating with them. So there's a lot more that can happen now that we're starting to bring in our intuitive side, and we can start connecting again. And that's why they brought this all up for me recently, because there's going to be people who are probably going to watch this that are literally going to find themselves in a position where they might even see something, be able to connect with other beings, other elementals, and have this information, be able to go into these different portals, experience different worlds, get more wisdom. And this is all to do with expansion of the soul, right? So that we can gain more wisdom and have much more fun experiences. Yeah, it's actually interesting looking at these little folk too. A little character that I saw on my bed was a little bit like that, because I thought it was cat-like, and these guys have little cat claws, and I've only just realized that now. It literally says that they have cat claws. Huh. So if these fellows are the ones that open up the portals, and that's the first thing that I had on my pillow, and then the fae man came through, had a talk to me, seeing and I experienced another world in some respects. Okay. Yeah, it just starts adding up. Very, very interesting. So these are my stories, some of my stories. I'm probably going to get off this and then go, oh, I forgot this story and this story. I'm not, yeah, I've probably got more to be able to tell you. But so I will say goodbye now. Thank you very much for being part of my journey. Love you guys heaps. Bye.